Hello, everyone. It's Alicia Manessis Maples, and I'm doing a little bit of an unusual introduction for this episode because I need to give you a trigger warning for it. This interview is telling Abby's story, and it's difficult to listen to. It is the most difficult story that I listened to of all 21 in preparation for the podcasts. And it involves physical abuse, domestic violence, sibling domestic violence, emotional abuse, and emotional neglect. And I want to say two things to you before you listen to this. Number one, thank you for holding space to hear Abby's story, which is very reflective of many, many adult glass children around the globe. Thank you for making space to hear her story and to become aware of some of the trauma that glass children endure. And number two, I want to encourage you to take care of yourself. Take this in pieces if you need to. Scream at a wall or make some comments, which I want to tell you has been very meaningful to the glass children who have agreed to be interviewed. Any of the comments that you make are like sending them hugs. So thank you for doing that. And here is Abby's story.
By the time I was in high school, I would come home from school and just stay in my bedroom the whole time and not make any noise and not talk to anybody because that was the only way that I knew how to not poke the bear, was to make myself as small and unnoticeable as possible.
Meet Alicia Manessis Maples.
You're here. I am so happy to see you.
Her TEDx talk has set a global viral trend about glass children. She's helped millions of hurting glass children around the world feel seen. You've seen her on NBC, CNN.com, and countless online articles. Here is your host, Alicia Manessis Maples.
Welcome to the I See Glass Children podcast. This is the place where we boldly dig into all things related to the glass child experience. We own our stories without shame, we pursue our healing, and we claim our value independent of others' thoughts, feelings, or expectations. Because you are important to me, I have to give you a warning. Some of the things you hear on the I See Glass Children podcast may be triggering for you, especially if you experience childhood trauma and neglect. And while I will occasionally have mental health professionals as special guests, I am not a licensed therapist, and this podcast is never meant to be a substitute for a supportive and healing relationship with a professional counselor. I'm your host, Alicia Manessis Maples. I am a glass child, and I see you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the I See Glass Children podcast. I am Alicia Manessis Maples, and I'm so excited to introduce you all to Abby. Abby has chosen to remain anonymous so that she can share more honestly about her story and her experiences. Abby, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Such an honor. All right. So let's kind of dig in, Abby. If you can tell everybody your age.
Yeah, I'm 26 years old.
Okay, you're 26. And tell us a little bit about your sibling.
My sibling is younger than me by 2.5 years, and he has a diagnosis of bipolar disorder and intermittent explosive disorder.
Mm. Goodness. Okay, so 2.5 years younger than you.
Mm-hmm.
Abby, at what age did you notice that something was different with your sibling?
He really, his issues were starting by the time he was in preschool. So I would have like early elementary school is when things started, and he didn't have the diagnosis from that early, but it was like um acting out at school, getting in trouble a lot at daycare. He would bite me and just random things that were beyond just like toddler acting out. And that was when I started to notice that things were different. Um, by the time he had gotten into elementary school, first or second grade is when um, I understood that things were different from like he was starting to see doctors about it and all of that.
Okay. So I'd like to ask you some questions if you're comfortable answering, because in my experience, people who are not in high needs families don't really understand what the behavior is like and what the family is going through. Um, they're kind of blessedly insulated from having to experience any of that. So
Yeah.
back to preschool. So you're saying that, I'm going to guess, like you were in first or second grade when you started to know.
Yeah.
Okay. How old were you?
Um, I have no idea. I
You're
A lot of
probably,
the memories of that get like really jumbled up from that time because it was just so chaotic. But I think our first grader's like 6.
so I was going to guess maybe about 6 years old. Yeah, that
Yeah.
it gets fuzzy, right? It gets really fuzzy. So when I'm going to put on the hat of somebody who doesn't understand, okay?
Mhm.
So, all preschoolers act out, all kindergartners act out. What was different about the behavior from your brother?
I think the big difference from normal acting out or typical acting out was like the amount of violence
Mhm.
that it had. There was a lot of throwing things and breaking things. Um, he got kicked out of preschool for throwing a tricycle at another kid. Um, yeah,
It's so hard, right? Because it's almost incomprehensible. And I'll speak for myself. You can jump in. There's almost this sense of shame. Not I wasn't ashamed of my brother. I felt shame around the things that were happening in the house. I felt embarrassed. And so many of my friends did not come over to my house, and didn't even know
Mhm.
that I had a brother, because I could not find a way to explain really what was happening or to give a justification for it.
Yeah. I didn't have friends over very much either as a kid. Just for me, it wasn't so much about like shame around it. It just was that I know if I have a friend over, there's like a 50-50 chance that um my brother is going to have a meltdown and then everybody is going to have a bad time. And, if I have a friend over, I want it to be fun. I don't want us to be scared that something violent is going to happen and then we need to respond to it.
Right. So, Abby, was he violent towards himself?
No, it was mainly towards, um, it was mainly towards my mom and myself.
Okay. You were the targets.
Yeah.
Were you ever seriously hurt, injured?
Yes. It's it's a complicated one because there would be like meltdowns that were so bad and like I would get hurt, but then like my injury was like not as pressing of a thing to deal with as my brother in the moment. So like the memory that sticks with me the most is like one time he was in middle school and had gotten into a fight with my mom and was throwing things, and my dad had this um shop vac, like a industrial vacuum cleaner on wheels for his garage.
Yeah.
And my brother like picked that up and threw it at me. And um it like hurt really bad and like was hurting for a while. And my mom checked on me and was worried that like I might have fractured my rib and kind of said like maybe we should go to a doctor. But then the meltdown was just continuing and continuing. And she never got around to like checking back on me. So I like things like that make me downplay the severity of it to myself. Um, where I'm like, it wasn't bad enough for, to like go to the hospital or for like my mom to uh prioritize me over him. So like it can't have been that bad is I guess what I tell myself. So it's it's hard to it's hard to see it in the way that somebody who's never experienced that would receive it if I was to tell them about it, you know?
Right.
Because if I tell that story and people are horrified, and I'm like, well, I mean, that was just, a day in our life.
Hmm. What you just said made me think of a couple of things, Abby. One thing is that what you were experiencing, which was physical violence, was normalized as you
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
mhm. Um, and the other thing is that I want people to understand is that when you are in a situation where this kind of atypical behavior, and in your case, violent behavior, is happening on a regular basis, and there is no one standing up for you, and there is
Hmm.
one who is protecting your safety, something happens to us in our psyche. I'm not a professional or a licensed mental health person. This is just from lived experience and hundreds of interviews with people.
Hmm.
It happens in our psyche where, in order to survive, we also don't recognize it for what it is. Because if we did as children, we would break.
Yeah, something that um, I talk about my childhood with my partner sometimes, and I like for me because it was so normalized, it's easy for me to just say things in like a lighthearted way and like tell these stories because to me it's like that was just how it was. But then like my partner will react and be like, that's that's actually horrible. And like your parents didn't do anything about it. That's disgusting. And then I find myself wanting to say, like, no, 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 like I'm okay. It's like it's not that bad. Um, because that's how I've learned to see it myself. But like getting that outside perspective and having it hit me that like this is so beyond the realm of acceptable, it
Yeah.
like messes with you a little bit.
How do you feel when your partner has those reactions?
Like in a way, kind of validated because it's like finally here's someone who like shows concern for me and like sees it how I would have wanted somebody to see it when I was a kid and couldn't stand up for myself. But it also makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable almost because I'm just not used to that, having someone show concern for me. And um, it's hard to, I think if, as long as I like don't think about my childhood too hard and don't like think too in depth about these things, I'm able to sort of um, pretend to myself that like I've gotten over it and that it doesn't bother me. But then when my partner reacts the way that he does, it like forces me to slow down and like stop joking about it and really see it with the seriousness that it should have been seen with, and that it, uh, I don't even know the word to describe that feeling. It's just weird.
It's may I share a little story with you?
Yeah.
So, my husband and I were sitting and watching a movie, just like random. This was just like what you were describing, just random memory popped into my head. And I said, and there are these characters, and it was an old movie, characters in an old black and white movie. And I said, oh, yeah, they used to come and talk to me. And he looked at me like, what? And I said, yeah, they would talk to me when and tell me that I had to count backwards and forwards, like from 100, from 1 to 100 backwards and forwards as fast as I could, because if I didn't do that, then something terrible would happen to my mom. And he just like put his phone down and he looked at me, and I'm still staring at the TV while I'm telling this story, Abby. And he says, did you hear them talking to you? And I said, yeah, they talk to me all the time. And he said, how old were you? I was like 9. And he said, and did you see them? And I said, yeah, I did. They were kind of like in this little cloud up in the corner of the ceiling. And that's where they'd pop in and they would talk to me. And my husband jumped up from his chair and he pulled me out of where I was sitting and he just wrapped me in this bear hug and he started crying. And I was like very confused. Like, what's what's going on? And he looked at me, he's like, Alicia, you were hallucinating at 9 years old because you couldn't cope with what was going on in your house.
Wow.
And Abby, I was like, whoa, you're right. And I had never seen that before. It
Yeah.
someone from the outside where this kind of growing up was not a normal situation. It took somebody
Mm.
from the outside who didn't grow up this way to recognize really what happened. And so I can relate to that feeling of kind of surprise and then discomfort. And then for me, it turned into a lot of anger of like, okay, it was so bad that this happened. And why wasn't anybody there to protect me?
Yeah. I can relate to that, like having so much anger. Like, and I never thought of myself as an angry person. I think because I saw that in my brother, and I really did not want to be anything like that because I knew, how damaging it was um, to everyone else in our family. But like once after I moved out of the family house and started living on my own and could like really start processing things and realizing the gravity of it, it like I had so much anger that I was feeling like for the first time in my life. Um, and it was difficult. And the like what you were saying also with like your husband's reaction and my partner's reaction to these things, it's it's weird because it's like a complete paradigm shift of how you see your own life, where I've lived up until now, like experiencing these things and feeling this way about them and living it like it's normal. And then to have the whole framework of how I look at that be shifted, it's really uncomfortable and unfamiliar because you have to like see everything that's happened to you in a different way. And I think that's where the discomfort comes from because I go like, oh, it would be easier to just keep like feeling detached about it and not all that serious.
Agreed. Until that moment comes where our emotions don't cooperate anymore and
Yeah.
they just refuse to stay buried and they start to come out. And then
Hmm.
we're forced to cope and we're forced to do something about it. So Abby,
Yeah.
it's it sounds like, I mean, this went on for years in your household. Did your
Mhm.
parents ever talk to you about what was happening with your brother?
Not really. I knew that he was seeing doctors. I knew that he was taking meds.
Mhm.
Um, there were times that he would be hospitalized. Um, for a while, and it was like, oh, he's not at the house, and I would ask, like, can I go visit him? And they would tell me no, and they wouldn't tell me like the details about anything. I think because they wanted to like protect me from that, which is weird to talk about because like they didn't protect me from like being his punching bag. So like why were they protecting me from the understanding of why he was acting that way?
Ugh. And I just want to say something if parents are listening right now.
Mhm.
Look, your children are seeing everything that's happening. They're probably seeing even more than you are because as siblings, we have access to more information and more awareness a lot of times than you do of what's going on with our brother or with our sister. And so it is not helpful to us for you to pretend like nothing's happening or to not tell us what's going on. That doesn't mean that you need to leave this heavy burden of here are all the medical details and here are all the things. It needs to be age appropriate. But Abby, like, I wish that your parents had just said to you, Abby, this is what the doctors are telling us is going on with your brother. And I want you to know that when your brother attacks you, it's not your fault. It's not anything that you have done. It's because he has this disorder and this disorder. And we're doing our best to help him. And do you want to talk about it? And what do you need from us? I mean, just that simple of a conversation can make a huge difference, parents, when you're dealing with your glass children. Do you want to add anything to that, Abby?
I don't know. I'm kind of tearing up a little bit just hearing you say that to me.
Then I
Because like I mean you're so right that that would have made such a difference to me as a kid to just be able to like talk to my parents and have them listen to me.
then I need to say it again. Abby, your brother's behavior was not your fault, and you were not responsible for your brother. You're not responsible for controlling his outbursts. You are not responsible for stopping his meltdowns. You were a child. It was your parents' responsibility to take care of your brother and to protect and nurture you.
Thank you.
It's the truth, Abby.
Mm,
I'm sorry that you didn't get that.
I mean, like what um, so much of my childhood was spent walking on eggshells because I because I did see it as like things I would do that would set him off, and like my mom would always tell me, "Don't poke the bear." And it's like, I mean, I don't even know what I'm doing to poke the bear. I just know that like I'm clearing my throat too much or something, and that set him off. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And so, like, it really, like, by the time I was in high school, my, I would like go to school and I would come home from school and just stay in my bedroom the whole time and not make any noise and not talk to anybody because that was the only way that I knew how to not poke the bear. Was to like make myself as small and unnoticeable as possible. And my mom talks about it now as like, oh, that year that you just stayed in your bedroom, and it's
Ugh,
sad.
it is. It is sad, and it would be very natural if you were sad and you experienced grief about this. At what point did your brother start receiving assistance that made a change in his behaviors?
Never. He had, I mean, he had received treatments, but he's still the same. Like nothing really ever worked.
So nothing changed. I mean, this was your life from early elementary school until you graduated from high school.
Beyond that, I mean, I think during that was COVID was a really difficult time because I, had to come home from college. I went to college out of state just to like get space. And that was so great for me. But then COVID, we all had to go home and do virtual class like on short notice. And being back in that pressure cooker of our family home without even the ability to like just go out on, like to a cafe or something to get away from it. Like that was really very difficult. And continuing on through until I moved out of that house when I was 24. Um, like I can give you a speed run of the different treatments and things that we tried for my brother throughout the years if that would be helpful.
You know, what I am more interested in, Abby, is how those things have impacted you because you are really there's only 2 years distance between the time that you left the pressure cooker, as you called it, to now. And so I'm curious if you have taken time to think about or process how your childhood and growing up circumstances have affected you today as a young adult.
I have really tried. I do a lot of reflecting and conversations with my partner. Um, and I feel like I'm still just finding more and more knots to pick apart with like how I experience the world. I feel like so much of the way that I go through life has just been skewed because my whole perception of what's normal is skewed. And my ability to like recognize my own feelings about things is really off. And the way I prioritize things is really off. I think the most difficult thing for me was that I never learned how to have self compassion.
Okay. So I'd like to ask you some questions if you're comfortable answering, because in my experience, people who are not in high needs families don't really understand what the behavior is like and what the family is going through. Um, they're kind of blessedly insulated from having to experience any of that. So
Yeah.
when I express difficult emotions, I heard things like, think about how your sibling feels. Your
Mm,
sibling
yeah.
has it worse than you. You should be grateful. Your life is so much easier than your siblings.
Yeah. That those kind of statements are the reason I think why I have such a hard time having compassion for myself because growing up I was always told like to think about what my brother is going through and how hard it must be for him and he has it so difficult and um it was like I was taught to have empathy for him before myself, even in situations where he was like beating me up.
Hmm.
And so, because of that, now I, when I have a negative emotion about something, I start feeling like, oh, like I'm not being kind enough to the person who's causing this hurt to me. They probably have something going on that I need to be more empathetic towards. And like, I should not make my emotions and my feelings and my reaction their problem. And then like I go to talk to my partner about it and he's like, "Why are you making excuses for this person to treat you like crap?" And it opens my eyes a little bit because I mean that's like what I have been doing is like I get treated horribly by my brother and then get told like think about how much harder it is for him. Think about the turmoil in his mind that makes him act out this way.
And that's not your fault or your responsibility. It
Yeah.
never was. And what happens to us, by the way, all of these things, I'll read one more statement. I believed it
Mhm.
was selfish of me to bring up difficult emotions.
Yes. Yes. I still feel that way, that it's selfish. I feel that I worry that it's selfish of me to do things just because I want them or want to do them, or like it's selfish of me. Oh my gosh. Like last year, I used to work as a teacher in kind of a special ed setting. Um, because my mom always told me, like, you have such a deep understanding for the kids with those struggles. And I know. So
It's
I thought like that was what I was meant to do. I have this like unique insight and understanding and empathy for these kids. So I'm gonna use those strengths in my job. And I worked at that job for 2.5 years. And um, last year it had gotten to the point of like really, really draining me. And I would cry like 4 nights a week because of my job. And I would be anxious getting ready to go to work because of the behaviors that I knew I was going to encounter. But then I would talk to my partner about it and feel like it would be selfish of me to quit that job because the kids needed me.
Oh,
And like it took like 4 or 5 months of us going back and forth about that for me to feel like this job is making me unhappy was a valid enough reason to quit. And it was making me so, so unhappy.
I
But I
think so.
still like couldn't see that as reason enough, you know?
Right. I do know. Yes, I do. Um, the things that I read fall under the category of emotional neglect. And when
Yeah.
we are taught that everyone else's emotions and feelings are more important than ours, or even in worst case scenarios, our emotions and feelings are completely unimportant and invalid, we carry
Just irrelevant.
irrelevant. That's a great,
Yeah.
yes, just totally irrelevant. And we're trained that way to believe that as children.
Yeah.
It is a heavy lift to retrain ourselves as adults. And one of the things that happens is what you just talked about, a lot of difficulty in setting boundaries and understand,
Mhm.
no, I don't deserve to be treated this way. Something's wrong with this behavior. Mm,
Yeah. Setting boundaries really like I have trouble with that still because it feels selfish. But the emotional neglect thing, I read the book um Running on Empty.
mm,
I think I saw that on your website. But I read that book and that was one of the most eye-opening and validating like self-help books that I've ever read.
so glad. I'm so glad. It's super powerful.
Yeah,
If I did not perform well, then I received excessive negative attention.
that one resonates.
Tell me a little bit about that.
It I mean I tried really hard to be a good student in school and always had really good grades and put a whole lot of academic pressure on myself, I think because that was an area that I could control. Um, but I mean, like I never really got like celebrated for it. It just felt like that was an expectation of me,
Mm.
to do well and not add more to my parents' plate because they already had enough of my brother's challenges at school to deal with. Um, but I think the more painful thing relating to that statement that you read is like getting inordinately punished for stuff. Um, and I never understood why because my brother would do such egregious things and kind of almost get away with it just because it was so extreme that like nobody knew how to correct him. Um, and if you tried, he would just escalate and escalate until it got like so out of hand. I mean, police were called on our house so many times when I was a kid because of how like violent and the neighbors would be concerned. Um, and so nothing ever really like happened to my brother in terms of consequences for his actions. But when I would do like rebellious teenager things or whatever, like it was the biggest deal in the world. Like one time, like my friend and I were throwing spitballs in the bathroom at the public park. Just like, to be stupid. We were in middle school And we got caught, and my mom drove me back to the park and made me clean that entire bathroom by myself. And I don't, in my mind, it was just like, why can't, this is so hard. I mean, we were just throwing, it was like balls of wet toilet paper, like it's not causing lasting damage. It's like, it's not a great thing to do, but I mean, it's not the end of the world. And my brother has done way worse things, but I don't see my parents punish him like that. It didn't make any sense to me.
What you're sharing is very common, and it falls under the heading of performance based worth. We have this sense growing up that our value and our worth are 100% tied to how well we perform and how well we behave. And it's not like that in non-high needs families. In non-high needs families, parents reinforce to their children that they're valuable just because they were born, because God created you with worth and with value, regardless of what you do or what you don't do. But amongst glass children, there is a lot of drive to perform and issues around perfectionism because that's where we believe our value comes from.
Yeah. To me, it was feeling that my value came from, I don't know how to word this. It's like a double negative in my head, but what gave my existence value was my ability to cause as little inconvenience possible to the family and to anyone else.
I have such hope for you because you are beginning your healing journey. And it's a hard place to be, but it's also such a hopeful place to be. And the fact that you have somebody in your life who's helping you see things from that kind of
Yeah,
tilted perspective is it's such a gift. I'd
it
like to,
really is.
yeah, it is. I'd like to ask you two more questions, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right. Um, if you had the opportunity to talk to parents who have a high needs child and have another child without high needs, what would you advise them?
I would advise them to be intentional with checking in on the lower needs child. I think for parents, it's easy, like if one of your kid has special needs and the other one only has needs, it's easy for them without even realizing to like prioritize one over the other and forget that the one that just has needs, regular needs, still has needs. So I, yeah, my emphasis would really be like make time to give your lower needs child the opportunity to speak with you, to share things about themselves, and really, really listen to them and like give them the chance to be seen as their own person and not just as their sibling's sibling.
That's so good. And what advice, if you could speak to a group of glass children who are teenagers, what advice would you give to them?
That's a hard one because I feel like I would still me needing that advice myself. Um,
And if you can't answer it, that's fine.
no, I don't know because I'm thinking about like what might have helped me when I was a teenager, and it for me, I always felt like, you can tell me advice and whatever, but like I have no power to change anything. And I'm not old enough to like get out of this situation, but I also don't have any standing to like change the way people around me act. So like I don't really know. I guess finding people that you can be open with is really important, whether it's like friends or a teacher or a therapist or someone, I think, because like for me, those were really difficult to find in my adolescence. People who would like listen to me without like downplaying or invalidating or whatever. Um, so I guess that would be my advice would be to keep looking for those people that hear you, even if it feels like you can't find them anywhere. I would say keep trying because once you find that person, that will be a lifeline.
Yeah, I agree. I wish that I had read it when I was growing up. That that would have been a gift. Abby, I want to say thank you. I know that this was not an easy thing for you to dig into your past and to share some of these memories, and I'm so grateful that you chose to do that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for hosting. I really am excited to see the finished podcast. I think it'll be really cathartic.
You and me both. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Ha I just wanna check in with you really quick. How are you feeling? You doing okay?
Yeah. Um it's heavy stuff to talk about. But
Yeah.
I made sure to um keep the rest of my evening free for some relaxation and cozy time, so I'll be all right.
Self-care is important, and
Mhm.
reach out to me anytime. You know how to find me in our group.
Mhm.
Send me a message via chat, and I think that's it. Was there anything else that you wanted to share?
Um I guess I like when I was in middle school, um i- is it okay to tell like a story?
Of course.
Um so when I was in middle school, um my mom started my brother was in a private school, like a specialized therapeutic school, at that time. And through the school, they ran a sibling support group.
Okay.
Um, and my mom took me, I think, because she thought it would be a group for siblings to learn how to support their disabled sibling. Um, I know. Um, but like um, through that group, the facilitator of that group, who was also one of my brother's teachers, was like the first adult in my life to realize how messed up things were. And she actually reported us to CPS. And because of that, they kind of gave us an ultimatum of either um, my brother needs to be removed from the house, or they were going to take me into foster care because it was just so violent. And so what we ended up doing was my mom and my brother moved out into a separate apartment, and then I lived with my dad for a couple of years. Um, and like those were some of the most peaceful years of my childhood, like honestly. But I just think about that so much because um I still haven't entirely reconciled how that could have happened. And um, after those couple of years, my mom and my brother moved back in, and the same problems started happening all over again. And to me, it was like literally Child Protective Services like told you how serious this was, and now it's like you forgot. And that I ruminate on that so much because I just don't know how to make sense of it.
How old were you when Child Protective Services got involved?
I feel 12.
Well, so from 12 to
So
14
he was 10.
is 10.
Yeah.
Are you looking back at that? Are you grateful that your teacher called Child Protective Services?
Yes, I am. I wish that they could have done more. Um,
Mm.
it was good for the couple years that we were separate. Um, but my brother continued going through the his treatments and therapy and the trials with different meds and all of that. And um, nothing really seemed to work. They just kept making adjustments on stuff. And then like he came back into the house and everything was the same. And that that's why I wish there just was more that they could have done, because it was like a band-aid for a couple of years and then right back into it.
Thank you for sharing that story. I think
Yeah.
that is going to be encouragement to people who are on the outside, who are seeing what's happening in high needs homes to take action and not allow
Yeah.
abuse and neglect to continue. It's very serious.
Yeah. And that's one of the big reasons why I wanted to like even do this interview, because I think there's still such a lack in understanding towards the glass child experience in like child protective services and those, people like outside of the family that could do something about it. I just don't think that they recognize that our experience as glass children can be just as dangerous and damaging.
It can.
Yeah.
Well, big, huge hugs to you, Abby. I'm
Thank you so much.
so grateful, so grateful that you were willing to do this. I know you shared you were really
Yeah.
nervous at the beginning. And how do you feel now?
Still a little bit jittery, I guess, but it's I feel really validated
Oh, I'm so glad.
getting to talk with someone who understands that experience. Even at like the sibling support groups and stuff, I feel like I didn't have the uh, flexibility to like really engage with that and reflect on it because I was still in that environment. And so this is like really the first time I've talked with another person after moving out and starting to untangle these things on my own. And I feel really, really validated and really excited about what you're doing with this project.
I am so honored. That's such a cliche word, but like to be the first person that you talk to about this, Abby, I feel so honored. And you
Well,
gifts and know that I'm here. You signed up to do this podcast. You get special access, so you can reach out to me at anytime that you want, and I will hold you in my prayers.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for doing this. How are you feeling? Remember, if you're struggling, reach out to a mental health professional. You do not have to do this alone. Thank you for being with me today, and don't forget to share this episode with your bestie, your therapist, your teachers, your minister. Sharing is caring, and hearing is healing. This is the I See Glass Children podcast. I'm Alicia Meneses Maples, and I see you. God sees you, and Jesus loves you.